Okay, so I promised I'd make a video about my collection of records and tapes and whatnot. This is my whole collection, but this is just some of my favorites. And I guess I'm just gonna go through each of them and talk about them a little bit. And it's probably gonna be a pretty long video because there's a lot of albums here, and I kind of want to just recommend some of this stuff to you. And if you like it, that's cool. If you don't, that's okay too. This is the first one I kind of want to talk about, and that's Western Digital. Uh, and this was a release on Fantasy Deluxe, and they always do a pretty good job with the presentation. You see those green tapes there. And this was a pretty good album. Like, the thing about Fantasy Deluxe is they record their albums in the most sort of lo-fi way possible. It sounds like it's been cycled through from tape to digital like 30 times over, and some of the albums on their label, it really hinders it. But with a lo-fi album like this Western Digital one, uh, it really helps add to the atmosphere of it, and I think this is definitely one of the better releases on that label. These two right here are Sidewalks and Skeletons albums that I picked up last summer, and they're probably some of the rarest tapes in my collection. There are only 50 of these made. Not many people really have them, but they're really good tapes. They're it's some classic witch house for you. You know, if you like that sort of thing, if you like really spooky kind of electronic music, I think you'll really dig that. Yeah, those are pretty good. It's a self-titled one, and then this is Your Escape, and I actually prefer this one, the just the self-titled one. It's got a really spooky cover, and I love it and everything about it. You know, they're not labeled or anything, but they're pretty good quality tapes, and I listen to these a million times. They're really good stuff. Okay, this one is Hong Kong Express, his self-titled album, and oh my God, it's so good. It's amazing. You gotta pick this one up. Well, find it secondhand now because they're all sold out, and I think that label is done for. I don't remember exactly which label it was released on. It was released on HKE's label, and this was the last tape on that label. So it's probably gonna just raise in price exponentially. So if you ever see one, like, pick it up immediately because it's a really good tape. This was one of my favorite albums of 2015. This is Wave Systems by Koran, and this came out September last year, and it's just a really solid album. It's not vaporwave particularly. It's just sort of ambient electronic music. I guess minimalist music sort of, but like I don't really know how to describe it. But it's very good. You gotta listen to this one because this was one of the best albums of that year. It's different and just very good and experimental. Some of the tracks weren't that great, like the interlude track wasn't great, but I mean, it was an interlude. So the editor, this album's really good. This one came out on Bedlam, and I love the gold tape there. That's a really nice touch. But this album, I didn't really like the art for it that much. Aside from the gold tape, that was really nice. But it's a good album. It's got great music on it. It's pretty different. You know, it's kind of got a mix of this sort of really ambient kind of music in there, and beautiful vocals by what was her name? Virtue. Beautiful vocals by Virtue. She has an incredible voice. And then it's got some rap songs on there, which, well, it's sort of like lo-fi hip hop, really. And those are really good. I always like good lo-fi hip hop. And then it's even got later on it's got some kind of crazy screaming vocals, and just it gets really erratic and really industrial, and that's pretty cool too. I like that about it. This one, y'all know what this is. This is Rain Temple. This is 2814's album. It's incredible, you know, like what else can I say? It's one you definitely need to hear if you haven't heard it already. And their first album, Birth of a New Day, which, I mean, you could find it searching Birth in a New Day, but it's in the kanji. I can't speak Japanese, so I don't know how to say it. But yeah, they're just really incredible. And this group 2814, it's kind of a vaporwave super group, because you have HKE, who that's his tape right there, and you have Telepath, basically in the same band, you know, or creating this incredible music. It's enchanting, really. Lots of sort of rain sounds, obviously, and just ambiance, and it's something you gotta check out. Definitely recommended. This one's really special to me. This is the first vaporwave cassette that I ever purchased, and it's New Utopia by Megalopolis. And this is it's I guess it's kind of an earlier Karate King one now. It came out last year, I think, and it's pretty good. Like it's solid, sort of atmospheric ambient kind of music. Makes you feel like you're like driving through Hong Kong at night or something, or through Tokyo or something at night, and it's got that great kind of vibe to it, you know. And it's I mean, Karate King Records, you can't go wrong there. They put out a lot of really great stuff. I know Dan, he's a great guy, and they just put out incredible music, you know. And Karate King himself also does sort of these 80s horror movie soundtracks. I don't have any of those on tape, but I've listened to them, and they're pretty incredible. It's great stuff. Continuing on that trend, we have all of Karate King's albums right here. Well, not all of them, but three of the best ones, and this one's his newest one, and it's Infinite Pleasures. And that cover, man, it's just like really controversial, because it's got a fetus on it. Like, it's kind of gross. But I mean, it's a great album, you know. It's really good. I love the music on this, and you know, it's really one of his better ones. This Sensual album is probably my favorite, though. Man, this is great stuff. It's just like really, you know, it's your classic vaporwave. It's like slowed down sort of 80s love songs, and just man, classic stuff. I love the design, love the orange tape here and the palm trees. It's great. And then this one is pretty good as well. Shit, I can't even read what this one's called, but this is one of his older ones. This is a reissue. I don't have the original pressing, because I wasn't following Karate King Records back when it started up. But this is another pretty solid album. It's very good. But yeah, it's great. I love the Karate King stuff. This is the, you know what this is. I mean, it says it right there. It's the Akira soundtrack, the original CD, which is kind of getting hard to find now. But you know, I always like to get my favorite soundtracks on CD, because like there's sort of minute things that you want to hear like in that FLAC. And I love the old CDs that were printed in the 80s, or this one was early 90s, but I love just the minimalist design of those CDs, you know, like they don't have anything fancy going, but it just looks really sleek. And this comes with a huge booklet which talks about the movie, talks about the score and all that. This is a Blade Runner soundtrack. This is the original pressing from 1982, so it's really one of the first CDs ever pressed since they were introduced that year. This one's good. It's not as good as the like 3-disc Vangelis set you can get, because this isn't even Vangelis at all. This is like a reinterpretation, but for a long time this was all that was available. for the Blade Runner soundtrack. This was all people could hear was this sort of reinterpretation because Vangelis was getting kind of I don't know, he had like a dispute. He didn't want to like release the music for Blade Runner, and there were like bootleg tapes of his stuff going around, but this was the only official Blade Runner soundtrack for ages. And I think people give it a bad rap because like they're good covers, you know. It's still got that sort of feel, you know. I think they do them well, you know. It's a nice tribute to Vangelis, I think. And this is one of my newest tapes. This is actually a VHS tape, as you can see, and this is Luxury Elite's Fantasy. This video is on YouTube, and you should look it up and watch the whole thing. It's about 40 minutes, give or take. And oh man, this is classic. You know, it's got all these visuals from commercials and pop culture and just random things from the 90s and 80s, and it's really it's a treat. You know, and it's got Topaz Gang on it, and you know, they're great. You know, a lot of people don't like them, but they're great. I love them personally. Topaz Gang is great. I love them. And then you know, Luxury Elite, you can't go wrong there. That's just classic vaporwave for you. I think the Sunkissed song is definitely my favorite, and I love the video of that. Everybody's on the beach and having a good time, and it's great. And you know, Los Angeles is really one of the better vaporwave labels. Their tapes are like, you can't get better quality than a Los Angeles tape, because like really honestly, I've never heard better quality from a vaporwave tape than that. It's just, they do it perfect. The only thing is some of their tapes have like a long sort of gap of silence at the end of the music, which is kind of annoying, but I mean, it's alright. You can just fast forward through it. This one I haven't even opened. This is a Crescent album, and you know, it's Wallflowers and Crescent and Bass Frequencies made this Crescent album, and it's, I don't know, it's not the best album, but it's beautiful. Like, just, that's why I haven't opened it, because it's just stunning to look at the album art. And you know, like, some of the songs on here are extremely catchy and good, but it's definitely not my favorite vaporwave album. I just love the aesthetic of the cover. You know, it's pretty great. This is Donovan Hikaru, and this is his album CRS 2.0. And I really like this one. You know, I love Donovan Hikaru because all of his stuff is super original. You know, he uses actual synths from the 80s and 90s. And that's really cool that he could do that, you know, and just create all his own music instead of using like samples like most vaporwave artists do. He uses a few samples here and there, but most of it's his own compositions, and I really like that about Donovan Hikaru. I think he's one of the most talented artists in vaporwave right now. Then this little tape right here, this is great. Basically, this guy, Powers PC ME, or that, no, it's just Millennium Edition. I don't know if that's his whole name, but yeah, PowerPC Millennium Edition. This guy, super talented. He took a bunch of like Kmart tapes that were recently uploaded to archive.org, and he kind of redid a lot of them, added some sound effects, made it sound sort of like vaporwavy, and just sort of made it sound like that sort of desolated like mall, like vacant mall, this the dead mall kind of thing. You know, it's a really good Mallsoft album, and if you dig Mallsoft and that sort of thing, I highly recommend this one. It's kind of like there'll be like cuts in it, and it'll just hear like talking, and people like talking about sales and like shit you would hear in Kmart, and it's beautiful, really, just to interject that with the sort of soft jazzy kind of stuff going on in that album. I love it. Oh man, this is really good. This is the most recent one that I picked up, and it's called Trust the Guide and Glide. Matthew Davids is the guy who did it, and it's just a beautiful album. Look at that. It's great. I picked it up mostly because I saw the description of it was like new agey kind of stuff, and I really wanted to get into some like new agey soundscapes, and that it pretty much was what I expected. It's just a bunch of really relaxing kind of nature sounds and like wind and just really good stuff. It's really nice to just put on if you're studying or something, because it's not really music, it's just soundscapes, and it's very relaxing. And if you're into meditation, like, this would be perfect. I'm not really into that kind of thing, but like, I imagine, like, if you drink your like herbal tea and do your yoga or Pilates or whatever, this would be pretty good music to listen to. This one, I didn't like the sound of this very much. It's sort of early Italian synth, which I expected would be pretty good, but I mean, it wasn't that great. This is Mogi by Piero Umiliani, and it's, well, that's his name, Mogi and Piero Umiliani. I got it mixed up. I'm not even gonna try to pronounce that Italian title, but yeah, this it's an interesting album. It's pretty good, but I didn't even open it because I wanted to have it in the pristine condition, because this cover is the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen. It's like, it looks like almost like what is it? Fantastic Planet, but like, instead of an alien, it's like a weird eyeball dildo thing. It's very bizarre, very phallic, and I just get a kick out of it. I think it's very funny. Like, this could be like a meme. Like, this could be like Orange Man or something. Like, I could see this image like taking off on the internet as like some kind of goofy meme, some kind of dank meme. This is one I picked up recently, and I picked it up solely because of the cover, because this is just badass. It's a guy hunting a moth like that. It's super cool. You got like a moth, you got some like rats here in the corner, and like a bunch of, like, looks like a giant black cube over him. It's interesting, or actually it looks more like he's like trapped in like a sort of space colony that's like on its last end or something. I don't know. You could talk about this album cover for hours and like still not really be able to classify it. But yeah, this album's good. It's like, what is it? It's sort of techno-y kind of stuff. I don't want to say like breakbeat, but whatever, sort of an evolution of that. It's kind of like funky sort of techno that's really good. And these guys are from Detroit, and like, it's just really good electronic music. I like this kind of stuff. I like some techno occasionally, but it's not really my jam. But this is the kind of thing you could put on and just like dance to. I figured I should have at least a few records that I could just put on at a party or something and get people dancing and stuff. This Avalanches album, this is one of the better albums of the year, I think. It's sort of neo psychedelia mixed with hip hop, and even like there's calypso elements as well to it. They sort of sampled a calypso song in the main hit here, Frankie Sinatra, and it works really well. Like the old calypso sample with the trumpets and all. I love that. It's great, and has an awesome music video as well. But this album, Wildflower, really one of the better ones. If you like sort of plunderphonics, like DJ Shadow kind of stuff, or if you're familiar with the Avalanches at all, you already know how great this album is. But I highly recommend it. I think a lot of people would like this album. It's pretty good, and it's got freaking Biz Markie in it, and I think MF Doom's in it too. I could be wrong about that, but like, it's got a lot of really great rappers in it. Danny Brown's in it as well. But yeah, this is definitely one to pick up if you like sort of hip hop and that sort of neo psychedelia stuff that's coming out of Australia. I don't know if y'all are privy to that, but it sounds a lot like that, sort of mixed with classic hip hop. So it goes really well together. I was surprised how good a combination that was. This album's really good. This is Deep Fantasy by Surfing, or maybe Surfing by Deep Fantasy. Shit, I always get that mixed up. But yeah, it's 100% electronica. That's a really good label. And it's got all the songs on here are pretty solid, and it's mostly original. They didn't use many samples. They use a few, but most of the music on here is totally original, which is kind of rare in vaporwave. And I have the first edition, which is on the clear vinyl. I don't really want the battery to go dead, so I won't take the time to pull it out. But a very good album if you like that sort of dancey kind of music and sort of lo-fi, sort of lo-fi indie kind of feel to it as well. But it's vaporwave at heart, and it's pretty good. This is a beautiful reissue of the Twin Peaks soundtrack. Let me just get these records out, because you guys see, like, this is a little slip cover, and it, like, the record sleeve shows through, and it's beautiful, really. And you got the trees, spooky Twin Peaks trees. Yeah, this is the Twin Peaks soundtrack reissue, and it's a gatefold, but there's only one album, so I was kind of confused about that, but I mean, it's whatever. And that is the man who did it, Angelo Badalamenti. I probably butchered his name, but yeah, that very talented composer who makes the sort of dark jazz music that you hear in Twin Peaks, and it's beautiful stuff. It's great, and I love that, like, Laura Palmer's eye on the back. It's just perfect, and like they didn't like they made it super minimalistic in the design, and I like that about it. It's not like, I don't know. It was. I think it was beautifully designed, and the album, or the record itself. I guess I will show you that. Let me pull it out real quick, because I mean, this one is just pretty gorgeous. It's worth seeing. But yeah, it's sort of I don't know. It's brown kind of splatter vinyl, and I like it a lot. It looks pretty good. This Burial album, I like Burial a lot. Burial is sort of, it's like electronic music that came out around in the 2000s, and it was pretty innovative at its time. And this one's more sort of industrial. There's some hip hop influence in there, but a lot of his works are sort of ambient, and he does stuff along the lines of Aphex Twin, if you're into that. But like, this one is more aggressive. It's one of his more aggressive albums, and it's really good. You know, like, I like it a lot. I picked this one up in Asheville when I was visiting my friend Cody, and this one is just, I've listened to this a lot. It's very, very good music. All right, Monopool. This one's pretty good. Vapor, you really can't go wrong there. It's like, I mean, I wouldn't call it vapor wave, but it's vapor trap, which is a relatively new genre that emerged with Blank Banshee and all of that. But he made a really good album here, and I love, like, at the beginning of this album, it's like initiating startup sequence. It was a perfect sample. No idea where he got it from, but it's just beautifully done, and I love the design of this as well. Just I don't know, it looks so Y2K with the bubbles, and it just looks great. You know, you see a lot of that shimmery sort of stuff and like retro stuff from around the turn. This one is on Trix Point Never's album, and he's the guy who created vaporwave, so it's really influential producer. It's great stuff. This album, it's kind of all over the place. I wouldn't recommend it unless you're sort of privy to noise music, because a lot of it is very noisy. And yeah, this is Garden of Delete, and it's sort of, I mean, I didn't like it as much as his older albums, but it's very good. It's a solid effort, and you know, it's pretty great music. You know, if you like sort of disjointed noise music with lots of clanging and banging and sort of an industrial vibe going on, but then he's also got some good melodies in there too. It's not all just chaos. But yeah, the coolest thing about this one is the inner sleeve here. No, it's not that one. This child's melting face. Like, how cool is that? I just thought that was awesome. That should have been the front cover. Like it's just that art is so cool, you know, and you wouldn't know about it unless you bought the album, but like that's worth buying the album for just to see that art of the kid's face melting off. It's just gorgeous. Okay, it's Tom Cruise. Well, what can I say about Tom Cruise? It's good. It's kind of poppy, you know. So this one, Silicon Tear, is not as good as his older stuff, but it's pretty good. You know, it's great. I mean, I don't know if I'd call it great, but it's pretty good. His older stuff's definitely way better, but this is like a solid effort, I think. And you know, it's a short sort of EP, but it's good, danceable electronic music. I guess you could classify it as synthwave. It's like more poppy than synthwave, but I guess you could classify it as that. It's pretty good stuff though. This is the first electronic album I ever heard. And, you know, Boards of Canada, I don't have to say anything about Boards of Canada because y'all already know how good that shit is. It's amazing. I love this art, you know, just the, the faces are missing on this family. And it just, I don't know, it just like is sort of like, it's got a lot of symbolism there. I don't want to go into it, but it's sort of just memory loss and it's just, I don't know, I get a lot of different feelings out of this album. Lots of nostalgia too, just because this was the first ever electronic album that I heard. And I was just like, what are these new sounds? There's no guitar in this music. What is this? La Planète Sauvage, the original soundtrack of the film. And this was a really great film. If you haven't seen it, I highly recommend it. It is, it's a French film, but it was Czech and French like co-produced. You know how like different countries will come together and work on a film. It was a French and Czech co-production, and it's a brilliant sort of allegory. I don't want to ruin it. I'm not even going to say anything about it. Just watch it. It's worth watching. The soundtrack is great. It's very spooky, very bizarre, super melodic, really great stuff. I'd highly recommend it. This is my Space Pirate Captain Harlock soundtrack, and this one I highly recommend because, I mean, this anime to me is very special because it sort of puts me in a sort of dreamlike state, and the music on it is really why I love it so much. The orchestration is just perfect. There's just violins and like the whole deal. All kinds of different, like the second you get used to it, it changes into something entirely different, and it just keeps you on edge. And it's such a beautiful soundtrack to this space opera. You know, with a space opera, the music is incredibly important, and I feel like, you know, this is just as good as like the Star Wars soundtrack or any sort of sci-fi soundtrack you can think of. This probably trumps it even. This is like, it's just beautiful. And there's his amazing ship, the Arcadia. It's my favorite sci-fi spaceship ever because it's like a giant freaking space warboat. I love it. Yeah, if you haven't seen that anime, highly recommended. It's before anime sort of turned to shit. It's from the 70s, so it's very old, but very good, you know, before everything got sort of, well, you know what happened there. This album, thank God for mental illness. This is a pretty ridiculous album. I've always loved the Brian Jonestown Massacre, and this is probably one of my favorite albums of the 90s. This one is, I mean, there's Anton. If you've seen the documentary Dig, you can tell this guy's an asshole. He's just a dick, but he's incredibly talented, and he can play almost any instrument that's ever existed. So I highly recommend checking this stuff out if you like sort of, this one's sort of Bob Dylan-esque. It's like twangy kind of folk music, but like imagine folk music on every drug you can imagine. That's this, because these guys, they were high as hell. There probably wasn't a drug that they didn't do, but they made pretty beautiful music. A lot of it you can tell is sort of got an Eastern influence, but not this album. This album has sort of It's like, I don't know, I don't want to call it country, but like it's that Bob Dylan sort of raw, folky vibe to it, and I love this one a lot, even more than the sort of psychedelic ones with sitars and stuff. It's just the lyrics are really great too. There's all kinds of different stories, and it's mostly about love and loss and all that mumbo jumbo, but like you just gotta hear it because it's told so well. This album is sort of some post rock. I kind of got into that in the summer of 2015, but it's Sunless by To Destroy a City, and I love the album cover here. It doesn't like it's just like a giant splatter explosion, kind of like a supernova exploding or something. And I really got to show you the vinyl in this because it's probably the most gorgeous record that I own. Just look at that. Look at that beautiful splatter. It's great. I love it. Yeah, I'll put that over there. I like this one a lot. This is Miklónok Leo's self-titled album, and I think they're from Belgium. I'm not entirely sure on that, but it's kind of like, I don't know. It's sort of retro dream pop, but all sort of electronic. It's really hard to describe. This is a pretty rare album now, but yeah, I had it imported and everything. But yeah, there's this first song, Decades, is the one you need to check out. There's a video to it, and I think they have most of their music on SoundCloud. You can listen to it there, but actually the thing is you can't like listen to this album anywhere. I need to rip it because the album in its entirety is just not available, and the download code they gave me with it didn't work. So I don't know, like this music's pretty obscure and it's kind of hard to find, but you can definitely listen to that Decade song, and I highly recommend you do because it's some of the best sort of dream pop I've heard. And it's not sort of shoegaze kind of dream pop with vocals or anything. It just has that sort of dreamy atmosphere that you want to hear that kind of music without any of the like bullshit weepy whiny Cure-esque vocals. So yeah, that's why I like it a lot. It's very good. Okay, I picked this one up solely because of this killer Japanese pop record from 1983. It's pretty good. If you like sort of world music, I highly recommend it. It's 45 RPM, which is kind of unusual. It's shorter than a 33. It's like a little EP really, but it's very good music. It's fun to listen to. I like this one a lot. Okay, this is the last one, and this is a Virgin Suicide soundtrack. And you know, you can't go wrong with Air. I love Air. And the thing is, this soundtrack, you know, this movie, like it made me cry. You know, I love this movie. If a movie makes me cry, I'm gonna pick up the soundtrack. So this was well worth. And if you like sort of that French electronic, sort of mixed with indie rock kind of vibe, I highly recommend this one. It's a very good score, and the movie's just heartbreaking. If you like sad movies, definitely check that one out. All right, that's about it. And yeah, thanks for watching this all the way through. If you did, I talked about a lot of different albums, and so yeah, just I appreciate you watching this, and I might make another one of these sometime when I've collected more albums. Just let me know if I should, and yeah, have a good day or night wherever you are.